Welcome back, everyone, to the Flyin podcast. I'm here tonight with Sam, who's back this year. Sam, we're starting the official MLS 2024 season. The guys reported this week for Media Day. I'm feeling pumped. I'm ready. I think we got close to 40 days before the first game, but I'm ready for it to be back here finally. But Sam, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, doing good. You're right. 2024 off to a crazy start. It felt like within the first, week of the transfer window, it was going, and then now it's kind of stagnant. We'll touch on that a little bit more in the podcast. But yeah, great to be back on the podcast. Starting season number 2 of the Flying Lion podcast. But yeah,
Pretty pumped to chat tonight. Like Sam had mentioned, couple of rumors for transfers. Recapping, from last week, we had one guy depart, one guy come in that we had talked about in the previous pod. We had a couple guys get called up to the U.S. men's national team. We're going to touch on a little bit. We had some Aaron Bupenza news that we're unfortunately having to report on as well. But yeah, I would agree with Sam. After the end of the season, you get a lot of news right away. You get a lot of, all right, which guys are out of contract, which guys are staying. You kind of get some rumors. We end up getting Miles Robinson. And then all of a sudden, it kind of slows down on what's going on. The guys are starting to report now, like we had mentioned, for Media Day yesterday and now for training starting this week. But Sam, I'm looking outside. It's pretty frigid out there. I don't know how the guys are going to be training out in this weather.
yeah, no kidding. I'm definitely thinking that they're ready to go to Florida, real quick, real soon.
Yeah.
Here probably, what is it, at the end of the month, beginning
Yeah.
of February, right there. So, starting preseason for them is going to be absolutely like let's go, like let's get out of the cold right
Right.
now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've played in the cold yourself, but the ball's harder. I mean, it's harder to kick. You just have a tendency just to be more tired just because of the air, to be honest with you. But then switching from training and that to then playing down in Florida, I mean, you have to get your body used to the heat, the humidity, and everything. So it'll be quite the change. And that's something that I think we can talk on in the next couple of podcasts. But, having these preseason games down there and then coming back up, first home game for the MLS season, February 25th, likely to be a cold one. So maybe this training now gets them a little bit prepared for that, but I don't think anything can really, set you up. At least it's not football. We saw Kansas City and now we're seeing Buffalo tonight. At least they're not tackling each other to the ground and, actually having that contact, but still it's pretty frigid.
Yeah, it's not too good. But to touch on things as far as, kind of like a weekly recap or review. Um, First off, Corey Baird, welcome to FC Cincinnati. The news we had been waiting for. Obviously, there had been rumors that he was going to be, the next up signing, especially after the Vasquez rumor started circulating where he was going to go. But yeah, good to have him on the squad. More of a forward slash winger. Kind of the similar style of like Bupenza, because Bupenza plays on the wing and kind of as a six at times. So
Number 9, you
interesting
mean?
to see how
Not
he's
not a
gonna
6 and 9.
number 9. Yeah, number 9. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of that pairing up top if that's what we end up going with. Here in the podcast, I'm sure we'll touch on, some other additions. But yeah, Corey Baird, welcome to FC.
Yeah, pretty pumped. Like we talked on the last time, it was kind of a rumor at that point, but seemed like it was moving in that direction. He signs as a free agent. Really, Sam, we can't afford to sign anyone with a transfer fee right now, but a free agent coming in, through 2025 with an option for 2026. Coming from Houston Dynamo last year, had 14 goals, 8 assists, and 48 competitions. Had a career year, to be honest. I mean, prior to that, like we had touched on, was fairly average. But I think, like Sam had pointed out, plays a good role in providing some stability in the attack, and the ability to play different positions. We saw Baji being able to do that. So for Corey Baird to play a couple different attacking roles, potentially even like we had mentioned before, filling in for Lucho if he needs to as well. I think that comes with a nice added bonus to that. So interesting to see, though, how Baird will work with Bupenza, the killer bees up top. I'm going to term that right now. But I think, at least for now, what I'm at least seeing is it's going to be tough to bring in a solid, Max Tam type striker with the way that the roster is currently built, unless they kind of buy down either Wobodo or somebody else to create that spot. So it's looking more like the summer for a big main attacking striker, or somebody that fits a role similar to Brandon Vasquez as a hold-up player, where Corey Baird is playing a similar role kind of to Bupenza. So at least for now, will be a nice kind of fill-in, but I know they're actively looking out, for other strikers. Sam, we're going to touch on that later. You made a good call on one potential. One thing I wanted to real quick mention about Corey Baird, though, is that he actually was coached by Kenny Arena, our assistant coach, when he was in LA in 2021. He had 3 goals, 2 assists, and I think about 15 games. But the continuity, being able to come back and work with one of the coaches again is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy who set career highs in goals, assist, appearances with Dynamo, and then he was a crucial part of them winning the U.S. Open Cup title,
True.
right, in 2023, starting every single match of the club's run. So he's a guy that is healthy as well all the time. And I also, so Zach's out, he's not on the pod right now. So, I have to make up for it in the statistics category. So I decided to. But among forwards, he was in the 84th percentile in assists last season and the 93rd percentile in passing accuracy. So it shows that he can be a guy that you can play the ball off really well and has good hold up play. He also had a plus minus of plus 11, so the best of his career, actually. So this is a guy that we're taking and kind of wanting him to take his game to the next level like
Right.
he did last season. So just improving on last season in the upwards trajectory. He's on the upwards trajectory. So is FC Cincinnati. It kind of like works together.
Yeah, I mean, great shout. He's still young too. I think at 27, he's kind of right at his peak, or I wouldn't even call it his peak yet, but let's say he's on the trend up, hopefully, from last year.
Yeah.
Another thing, that I think is crucial is he's a winner. Like you mentioned, he won U.S. Open Cup, LAFC. I believe he might have won a supporter shield out there with them too. But Sam, in college for Stanford, he won 3 college cups. He won the NCAA championship 3 years in a row. So proven winner. And I just kind of found this interesting, but bonus trivia question for you. Are there any other FC Cincinnati players that have won the NCAA championship in college?
Trying to think of other people that would have. I mean, college guys that I'm thinking in my mind are the newer guys, but I don't think
Sure.
they've ever won a title.
Yeah.
So I mean, no, I'm no names are coming to my head as far as like ones that I'm like, yeah, 100%. I can think of that guy.
So kind of interesting. I mainly looked at the MLS players, but Corbin Bone, 2007 with Wake Forest, Darren Maddox,
Oh,
2010 with Akron, and then Corey Baird. So 3 at least MLS players that have won the NCAA championship. I found that interesting. None other guys from the current roster, but proven winner, and I think we have seen how that translates to a good team, and hopefully will move us forward, for next year. But moving on from Corey Baird, again, we're pretty pumped about him, but we had some awesome news, Sam, since the last podcast. There was an announcement by the U.S. men's national team. I'll let you kind of give us a rundown on that.
Yeah, U.S. men's national team announcement. 3 guys going into it, and when you hear U.S. men's national team, you think of 3 guys, right? You're like, oh, it was probably Miazga. Vasquez isn't on the team, so that's a little weird. But maybe Celentano. He's had looks. Well, yes, that would be one guy. Ian Murphy is actually one guy, and then the newest guy to FC Cincinnati, Miles Robinson. Those three got called into training, and there's interesting takes on this January camp year after year. And first of all, I'd like to point out that those three together, I'm very happy that they're building chemistry together. They're
Good
getting
shout.
more acquainted with each other. This is really more for Robinson and Murphy to get acquainted with each other. As well, I mean, yeah, of course, getting acquainted with Celentano and his tendencies from, working out of the back, etc. Miazga doesn't really need as much getting acquainted with, but being the defender of the year and all. But yeah, I did think it was the check-in video that FC Cincinnati had posted on their socials was very awkward and needed a little bit more chemistry there, boys. But yeah, for the most part, I'm happy that all three of them are getting this chance, and I'll touch on a little bit here what I think of the January camp.
When you see that video Sam is referencing, you guys can go back and look at FC Cincinnati's tweet. For how much Roman uses his hands as his profession, he did not know what to do with his hands in that video. It was just pretty funny. But
Will
yeah, it
Ferrell
seemed
Talladega Nights.
he did. He's like, what do I do with my hands? But yeah, good shout. Yeah, I was pumped to see Murphy there. I think a lot of people were surprised by that, but at least for our standpoint, bringing him in, if he's not going to be in the FC camp for preseason, at least to work with Miles Robinson, like you said, to get acquainted with each other, is a good first step, because I really see Murphy playing on the left of a 3 center back system if we go that way. With Miazga in the middle potentially, and then Robinson on the right, most likely, being that, again, Murphy's left footed. So that'll be interesting. They have a game coming up on January 20th. They're playing Slovenia in Texas. So hopefully those guys will get some minutes. This camp is termed Camp Cupcake. So yeah, it's not the A team squad, but hey, still counts for U.S. men's national team cap if they actually get an appearance. And we've seen a lot of guys actually take advantage of this, get under, Greg Berhalter's radar, enough that they're called in, but then to see how they train and potentially play with each other. These are arguably some of the better players in the MLS that are at least U.S. national team players. So it's good that they're recognizing that we have good talent on the team. Like you mentioned, there's other guys that could potentially be added, but that's for a later podcast. So,
Yeah, I think in the past years, this camp was more for the MLS guys, right? And still is. But it was a more reputable camp because more of the players were playing in the MLS rather than now more of the players that are on the A or B squads are playing overseas. So it kind of makes it more of a scouting ploy rather than actually seeing guys build chemistry on the national team. It's almost like an open tryout, if you will, to see, who could be worth it to even make it on the C team.
yeah. I mean, it's an honor anytime you're called up to your country. Like, would you be mad to be called up to play for the U.S. though?
No, I'm just saying from a U.S. men's national team standpoint.
Oh
I mean, of
yeah,
course, if
yeah,
I'm a player and I get
yeah.
called in, like, yeah, I'm
Sure.
gonna I'm gonna be super hyped and
Right.
oh my gosh, this is my first cap. But like from a standpoint of like, hey, we want to
Win
win
a
a
World
World
Cup.
Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't really do much for me.
Well, and if you look at like other countries, though, look at Bayern Munich, look at Dortmund, in Germany, a lot of the best players, or even Spain, Real Madrid and Barcelona, the teams, referring to the national teams, are made up of players from their respective teams, in Spain, in Germany. So are we getting closer to a point where some MLS players are going to contribute for the U.S. men's national team? I don't know. I mean, obviously right now our A squad's majority of European people, but in the relevancy of what's been going on with Miles Robinson, with Brandon Vasquez, I mean, these guys are doing what is best for their personal careers in their moment, for them to make money, to continue their career, and to have the best opportunity to still, make the team. So there's a lot of stuff out there online about it, but don't let any of it fool you. I mean, these guys are obviously pumped for where they're at. Obviously, I'm sure some of them would love to be playing in England, but The MLS is getting better slowly. I went on
Yeah,
my
I
little
mean,
tirade about that.
no, yeah. Once again, like a cap's a cap, right? And it it is what it is. And I hope that guys like Murphy, guys like Robinson, especially, I mean, maybe even Celentano as well, really just grab a hold of Greg Berhalter's eye to see,
Sure.
hey, like we're building something special in FC Cincinnati. But
Yeah.
yeah, for the most part, gonna be tuning in for that friendly probably in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of another international player, so Aaron Bupenza, our DP striker, he's going to have a vital role this year. News came out, this past week that he might have had his phone stolen. He had a personal video on it, which we'll kind of just leave it at that at this point. All this news comes out about it at first, and the ramifications that if people got a hold of this video, it could mean up to 5 years in jail. So more has come out a little bit about, the fact that he might have been blackmailed. Again, I don't know too much other than this reporting. Pat Brennan had released a story about it as well, and hearing him kind of speak on it, really, just support for the player and what's been going on. It seems to be the initial story, and the way they portrayed it at first doesn't always seem to be the way that it's actually, going on. But I'm happy to see that, Bupenz is in Cincinnati. He's here for the preseason. I'm sure he's ready just to kind of clear his head from all of this and to be able to hopefully just move on. But it sounds like this is an ongoing thing. So how that's going to affect him moving forward will be interesting. But it is kind of interesting how news travels so fastly and how jokes are put out there so quickly. And we're so rash to it. But, at least hearing from other sides is important, I think, is what I kind of took away.
Yeah, I'm, like you said, I mean, it's nice to see him in training, surrounded by his teammates, coaches, etc. Definitely some guys that he will need, he'll need their support
Right.
during this time, even if it is hopefully pretty short. But I did see a meme that I thought was the epitome of this situation, and that was Miazga and Bupenza. One said release the tapes, and the other said don't release the tapes.
That's pretty
I thought
funny.
that was fantastic. That was
Yeah.
brilliant. But it really is a sad situation to see because this man, we saw it in the offseason. He's on billboards in Gabon.
Yeah.
Like he's a big deal over there. And for
Sure.
someone to want to kind of ruin his life like this and hack his phone, it just sucks.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. That's why we have privacy here. And that's why, I don't know, stuff happens. People figure information out that maybe you don't want. But for Bupenza to be, like you said, such a notable player, he's under so much scrutiny, even before with everything that had happened last year with, coming back to training late and stuff like that. So you're even more under a microscope for this season. And again, I'm just so happy that he is here. I saw a video yesterday from Media Day of, Nick Hagelin joking around with Aaron Bupenza, like the most unlikely, in my opinion, of people to be like interacting with each other. But Nick's always kind of got people's backs and seems to be uplifting in the way that he jokes around. I would imagine a lot of the guys think he's probably the biggest goofball in the locker room. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you see when he scores a goal, he's got a lot of personality. And I mean, the guy's
Well,
an acrobat as well.
so
So
Sam, I forgot to speak on this with Corey Baird, but apparently Corey Baird is up there on the list of goal celebrations. He's got the bunny hop, apparently, is his thing. So can you imagine, 3,000 people in the Bailey doing the bunny hop?
that'd be a lot of stomping.
It would be. It'd be interesting. I think the Shalala laws will continue with a combination of with a bunny hop, and then we have Bupenza with his backflip. So we have a lot of celebrations going on in the striker room right now. But moving on from some of the other news from last week, I think the big thing right now and what we're waiting on is to see what happens with Alvaro Barreal. We still have this rumor potentially of him being interested from a team in France, but more has come out that says there's actually not been an official offer. And then more recently that says, well, now maybe they're agreeing on personal terms. It seems like it's like every day or every week seems to be like just dragging on for this scenario, where the Vasquez thing was kind of, cleaned up pretty quick. We can move on. We found our other forward. We're still kind of dragging our feet, and Alvaro's, yet to show up in Cincinnati. I personally don't think he comes back for it, because even if we don't find him a permanent move right now, I think a loan might be an option at this point for maybe 5-6 months before he gets formally moved, potentially in the summer. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the situation as a whole, to your point, I mean, there's been multiple reports that have come out that said that they did or they didn't. But then there's also been reports that I've even seen that there have been up to 2 offers, and FC Cincinnati isn't happy with the amount that Lens has
That's
offered,
true. I
right?
saw that one
So
too.
yeah, there's different ones, and I think the loan option is interesting. Um, I don't think a loan option makes sense for Barreal in this point in his career. I
Sure.
think they will eventually probably get a deal done. Instead of for the amount of money FC Cincinnati wants, it may be a sell-on clause that they can't refuse from Lens.
Mm-hmm.
That FC gets a certain percentage, because I know the club in Argentina will get a certain percentage if FC Cincinnati sells, so
Up to
maybe a
25%,
similar
right?
type situation. Yeah. So I'm sure FC wants that covered, right? So if you know club in Argentina is taking 25, I'm sure FC Cincinnati wants to cover their bearings a little bit and get a little bit more. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think something like that has to be to get the deal done, even if it's not the number that they want. It's got to be some little integral little thing.
We've shown that we've been willing to allow these players to make these moves too. It's not like we're holding Alvaro back. I think they're just trying to make sure it's best for the club at this point.
Yeah.
So all these people are like, oh, they're holding their players back. Oh, they want to go overseas. It's like, we're trying to facilitate that. I said the wrong word, but facilitate that. It's just a matter of what makes the best sense for us and our club and us moving forward. So I think that, hopefully will be ironed out, but I think it kind of handcuffs us in some ways too, because you need some of that money to buy players and to bring these people in. Luckily, the MLS window is a little bit longer, but at least the European window, that technically closes on February 1st. So if we're going that direction, it has to be sooner than later. So I would imagine here in the next week or two, we're going to see more movement with that. But I love some of the polls online of, do you think Alvaro is going to show up to Cincinnati? And he's technically still under contract and everything. I'm like, I don't really think so. I think he's been pretty happy down in Argentina training, at his former club's training grounds and being around his friends. It seems like he's pretty much moved on.
Yeah, I think we'll touch a little bit more on sooner rather than later, and how that affects the whole roster. But speaking of other media day stuff, we had that on Sunday. Um, a few things that I saw that came out to me was, Miazga saying hi in the video. I thought that was awesome, as
Mm-hmm.
well as Acosta doing some interviews and different things. They I believe they posted what?
I was just going to say the thing with him is he brought the blonde back. I don't know if you saw
Yes,
that.
yes, he did.
He
Yes, he
was
did.
matching the snow outside. Is it blonde or white? I
I
can't
think no,
tell.
I think it is blonde, but I mean,
It looked kind
it
of like
it may
whitish,
just be snow. What if it's just snow?
just snow on his hair.
Yeah, it's just snow that's not melting on his head. I
The
mean,
real
you don't know.
frosted tips.
Yes, like actual frosted
Actual
tips. He's
frosted
got a
tips.
yes.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, he made his
But then
appearance, Sam, in the MLS media day actually before FC Cincinnati had their media day yesterday. This past weekend, we get word that he was representing the club, for this, and you see this cream colored jacket, and everyone's kind of wondering,
I
is
was about
that
to bring it up. People were buzzing. People
is
were
that
buzzing
what the
about
new
that
kit's
jacket.
going to be? That new away kit that we're looking at possibly a white or cream color to, Sam? I don't know. What do you think?
I was about to say that they also jersey teased. They had a video
True.
that was jersey teasing. So they're
Yeah.
letting us know. And in about a month or so, we're gonna figure out what this new jersey is.
One
And
month and
a
a
cream
day.
color would be interesting. Yeah.
February 16th. Stay tuned. It sounds like At least the jacket might be kind of pushing people towards that way. I think it'd be kind of cool to have a creamsicle color.
I think it works well enough with the orange and the blue. That way it kind of accents it a little bit. It's not too overbearing on the
Mm-hmm.
orange, but
Yeah.
I don't want to get into color schemes and all that right now. But
Well, you sent out a
um,
tweet yesterday about the favorite kits, and we had a lot of people that were. I think I
it
saw
did
orange
kind of
was
go
pretty
crazy.
high. I was
Yeah,
shocked about that. River kits, obviously with
yeah.
winning a
People love the
trophy,
River Kids. Yeah,
absolutely. But the old, USL diamond one, I think that needs to be incorporated in these jerseys. Everyone loves the diamonds.
yeah. I thought the results were a little interesting. I didn't know what kind of impact we were gonna have there, and we had what, like 20 responses or something like that right now.
Yeah.
So if you haven't responded,
Yeah, let us
let us
know.
know what your favorite kit is. Yeah, let us know your favorite kit in FC Cincinnati history there.
And do
I
you
mean,
think
I
the
didn't see
cream is going to be this
goalkeeper
year?
kits, but yeah,
Yeah.
that we'd like that answered. If you have insight as well, if you're like, hey, actually, cream is
Yeah, let us
the
know.
it's yeah.
Let us know.
But the other things that they were announcing for media day or around media day, obviously we mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast, but the preseason schedule
Hmm.
down in Florida. January 26th, we start off with Austin. February 1st, we go to New England. February 9th, we got Philly. And then we cap it off February 15th with New England again.
Caleb Porter, we're going to see a lot of him this preseason.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's interesting, yeah, that New England, usually, Philly was the team that we're playing a lot with the relations with them. No shocker that they're on there, but Austin was kind of a surprise.
I
Sam,
like it.
I'm kind of surprised not to see University of South Florida. We seem to be playing them every preseason. It seems like literally every year. And we actually drafted a player from them this year in the super draft too. So maybe we'll get a
The
late
things
addition.
though, yeah, the things though that you see with the preseason, I mean, they could probably have a game with somebody we wouldn't know until
That's true.
Laurel or Pat or somebody was like, "Oh yeah, they had an exhibition with these people," and it was like,
Sure.
"Oh, well, I didn't even know." I
Yeah.
think I made the comment on Twitter
Yes. I
earlier
was about
this,
to comment on
this
this.
past week. Yeah, and I made the comment, and it was fun seeing the games start it, 2 hours later, and then seeing the final 2 hours later, right, via Twitter. So you'd see the game start and then nothing, and you go, "Oh, the score was 2-1," and you're like, "Oh, okay, I guess that was cool."
Well, it reminded me like things that I'm getting excited for now is like final game tweets, like Sam said, or line change. You get 9 people that come into the match at a time or whatever, or
Yeah.
the trialist number 1 or trialist number 3, and you're like trying to look at the photos and see like, oh, do I
Who? Yeah.
recognize who that is? Is
Yeah.
that is is that Mbappe that I see there? He is available potentially. So no, it is kind of a fun time just to look at the clues a little bit and see the potentials. But I mean, ultimately, I would love to have streams of these games, but it doesn't sound like that's happening.
What we need, and Apple TV better get on this. We need a Hard Knocks for the MLS preseason.
Good shout. I
How
mean,
cool would that be?
MLS did pair with Box to Box Media this week, and they're doing a Drive to Survive type documentary series for the MLS for this season. So stay tuned,
That's got to be
everyone.
so cool.
It's going to be very interesting. But Sam, I think you have a trivia question for us, and then we'll cut to a break here.
Yeah. So, trivia question of the week is, who is FC Cincinnati's most expensive signing in terms of transfer fee, and from which club did they acquire this player?
Transfer in, correct?
Yes.
Players we brought into the club. I'm going to go with Brenner, I think. Yeah, I'm going to lock it in Brenner.
All right. Ryan's going Brenner. We'll be right back after the break.
So Agility is a technology-driven soccer training facility. So we offer 6 facets of training. That would be Tech Touch with ball launchers that work on your first touch, the TSZ, which is the ESA equipment and working on decision making. We also have a circuit, circuit training would be taking the ESA equipment to the next level. It's kind of like a soccer obstacle course. Then we offer neuroscience training with our reflection tools, working on processing things a little bit faster, hand-eye coordination and such. We offer skills classes, which is your typical core skills training. Lots of people still enjoy that, so we work on a lot of attacking 1v1 skills. And then we also offer athlete development. So our athletes come here and they work on speed, agility, quickness, explosive movements, really just learning how to move and function a little bit better as an athlete.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Flyin podcast. Thanks again for listening to our sponsor there. Again, we're here with Sam tonight, talking a little bit of news from this past week. Preseason just opened up for year 2 of the Flyin podcast, but year 2024 and the MLS season now begins with some training this week too. Sam, I'm just pumped that we're finally kind of getting things moving towards actually having some games here soon.
Yeah. We discuss preseason games, but obviously first game isn't until February 23rd. So funny thing is we still have a lot of moves that need to be made, and we have a little under a month in order to get those, or I guess a little over a month to get those things done and ready for that first game.
Thank God that Chris Albright's birthday was yesterday, because I'm sure his Monday through Fridays for the next couple of weeks are going to be booked solid. I'm a little worried.
Busy.
I was going to ask you if you're concerned. I'm a little concerned right now. It is early. We still have several weeks, but we don't have a solid right back. We don't have a solid left back right now. Obviously offloading Vasquez created 1.2 million in GAM, but I don't know. Like, what are we going to do with this money? What are we going to do at those spots? We're going to talk a little bit now on a few guys that, we were talking about contract renewals. It'll be interesting. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, don't even act like you're a little bit concerned. I think you're pretty concerned. But yeah, you make up some good points. Offloading Vasquez frees up, a decent amount of GAM. And then Barreal, like you said, would open up a lot as well. So the more that we can get these kind of pending moves done, it helps the future of FC Cincinnati. Now, looking at the lack of depth with the right wing and the left wing, where are we with that, right? As far as we had prospects for those positions, now it just seems like we're gonna re-sign the guys that we had. There's really no prospects that have come to fruition as far as, okay, yeah, FC is looking at these guys. It's more of, is Barreal going to stay? Is Arias going to stay? We haven't really heard anything from, the other guys, but probably one of the biggest guys that we need to talk about is Arias, and the offer has been made, but the agent wants more money, right? So it's another situation where it's kind of a murky situation. At the beginning of the window and at the end of the season, he wanted to come back. He was like, FC Cincinnati is my priority. And his agent was like, okay, we'll make it a priority. Now the relationship seems to be a little bit messy. And FC, I think, really needs to get this deal done. And a full season of Arias is going to be amazing.
Yeah, I think for me, what I see is a guy that was kind of battling injuries. He's 31 now, 32. He just had a birthday. Something telling to me, I don't know if it's small things or not, right? But FC Cincinnati didn't wish him a happy birthday. He had the same birthday as Gaddis. Neither player, not under contract right now, didn't say happy birthday to either one. That's important. Just kidding. I don't know. I just see that, at least with this relationship and the going back and forth, it seems that, yeah, it's created some issues. And like you said, it sounded like Arias's family, was happy being here. They kind of had their kids and some schooling here too. But yeah, at this point, it'll be interesting to see, because at first you see all this stuff online. Well, Arias is a free agent, and he could be picked up, in reentry draft. Well, no one's picking him up. And then you see, agent talk probably online too. He was this good player and he's on the Columbia national team. Like, yeah, we really, reestablished his reemergence into the Columbia national team, which is great. But then you go to, we see rumors, is he going to go to Corinthians? Is he going to go to all the other places, where I think that's agents just trying to boost up his value to get more money. I mean, he's at the end of his career. Let's be honest, he's probably past his days of where he's going to make, the most amount of money that he would. So he's still trying to salvage some of that too, I feel like. Where he goes next, Sam, I think is kind of vital for his stake in the Columbia national team for Copa America. He really needs to be at a place where he's playing consistent minutes, and we offer him a good opportunity for that in a position where he'll likely be playing for them too, as he was able to this year. So I think he would be a vital player to bring back, especially because right now, I mean, you have Powell at right wing back. Okay, at least you have one person, but our other backup, Gaddis, he's uncertain. Halsey, he's unproven. So do they expect Halsey to take that next leap? Is that what this year is for? I'm really intrigued by both wingback scenarios, because it's one thing to say you have a deficit in center back, but then you bring in Miles Robinson. You have a deficit in striker and you bring in Corey Baird. Who do you have at wingback? You have Isaiah Foster as your left wingback right now. I mean, he played in, I don't think he even played in the MLS game last year. So I think that is number one thing on his list, for Chris Albright, is to find a replacement for Barreal. Or, do we convert somebody to that position? Is Yuya Kubo the next wingback? I don't know, man. No idea. But it's fascinating. Besides him, though, I would say that the Moreno contract is the other thing that I'm looking at. Again, a similar scenario. An offer was made. Again, it more seems like, he had a solid year that kind of flew under the radar of some people. I saw, MLS Players Association listed 3 players that are underrated in 2023, and Moreno was one of them. Nagby was another one of them. So, I mean, you're putting him at the same level as Darlington Nagby too. Is that more of an ego boost and a thing for him to tell his agent, hey, try to push for more money for me, Is that where their kind of disconnection is at? But it sounds like he was in Cincinnati. It sounds like there's been some sightings of him. He's been liking all the Instagram posts. I know how important that is, right? He's staying interested in the club, and I think eventually a solution is going to be made, because ultimately we need Moreno. If we're not going to get Callan Acosta, I think he's another vital piece.
Yeah, I think you made a great point. It's kind of very similar to the RS situation with Moreno. Offers being made and the agent or Moreno want more money. But I do want to ask you this question. We can, talk about it a little bit more, but in your mind, for the positions that we have, who's more replaceable, Moreno or Arias? Because I'll tell you my thought process right now. I think Arias is a lot harder to replace than Moreno,
100%.
just because of the depth at the position.
Yeah.
I think in the midfield we have guys like Angulo, like Pinto, Kubo, guys that can step up.
Right.
But I think for the right back position, I think we need Arias more than we need Moreno. If we were to choose one, obviously both would be great.
The drop in talent at those positions is a little bit more drastic, and at an area where, I kind of consider an outside back like a, cornerback in the NFL, Sam. They're kind of on an island sometimes. So for them to cover ground and be important in going forward, we saw how vital both of them were in the attack last year, Barreal and Arias. But for getting back to and tracking players, or if we go to even a 4-back system at some point, even more of a big deal, that you need those solid guys, and they're hard to find, like you mentioned. So one thing I wanted to comment, we see Kai Wagner ends up going back to Philly. One player we had on the list that we would have loved to have would have filled Barreal's role, but is him being in limbo kind of the thing that made him go back to Philly, Sam? He had kind of stated he would like to stay in the MLS. There was offers, in Europe, but because of the limbo position we had, I don't know if we had enough to bring in Wagner at that point. And if it moved quicker, maybe we see him come, maybe we don't. I don't know. You had Palacios that came and actually visited the club. So that's another wing back that you had an option for too. Two players I would say arguably they looked at as high as Miles Robinson, to be honest with you, Sam.
Yeah, I was about to bring up Palacios. I think that you can make more of a case for Palacios that we had a greater chance to sign him than Kai Wagner. Just because out of the gate it seemed like Kai was going to be, the number one, probably number two free agent behind Miles.
Right.
But yeah, to move on to, more of that depth position, I want to talk a little bit more about Gaddis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gaddis and Badji alike. I know we hadn't named Badji's name too much, but you had mentioned that both kind of seem like they're going to be gone at this point. Gaddis, obviously, age is a big factor in that, but can he still bring a veteran presence to the squad? I mean, I know if we bring back Arias kind of does that for us, but from a Gaddis standpoint, I'm trying to think of where he fits into this squad. He did a pretty decent job playing for us when we needed him.
Mm-hmm.
He stood up for us when we were playing Toronto.
Right.
That'll always be a memory, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. If he just decides to retire again, if he doesn't get picked up. But with Badji, it just didn't. I wasn't really too high on his return to begin with, to be honest. I think to Corey Baird coming in, I think he was probably there's more valuable guys than Badji to be your backup strikers or backup nines. And I'd rather get more youth at that position if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that's a good shout because I had seen a lot of, video and photos out recently of Kimi, and it seems like this is the year for Kimi to really step into more of a role. Because I see his spot, at least on the roster, not taking up as much money as maybe Badji would have wanted, that would have, limited us in different positions. So I think you're right. I think they go younger there because at least for now, you have two strikers that at least are somewhat starter quality. I would say Baird is kind of a fringe. I wouldn't have him, full year as our starting nine, but for at least now, to plug holes in some ways, he can do that. You have Santos, who's had experience starting in the past. So at least you have that, but you're kind of weaker in some ways too, because there's the lacking of some experience, but that's the risk you take, and the way that you have to design your roster and how you have to fill out, some of the last 5 different spots. I think touching on, like we had mentioned, Halsey's another one where I think this is his year to be bumped up into a higher role, or Angulo, Pinto. Those are guys that you're going to see with more minutes this year, in my opinion. But can we get a starting left back, a starting right back? That is the key right now, in my opinion. You have finally the center back solidified. You have your spine of the field kind of solidified, but we kind of need to round out, the end of this roster. And I don't think it's going to be completed by, the middle of February, even by the first game, to be honest with you, Sam. I think they look into March, April at some other options. And we've seen, he's not really willing to just go after people like we used to in the past and just make rash decisions where it kind of handcuffs us again in contracts. Let's not go and get this guy that, oh, well, I heard he was good in the 2nd division of Sweden or something. You know what I mean? Like, we need a little bit of patience in that sense. We didn't get Obi until I think April or May. So I still think there's hope for that. It's just, it is concerning when you see what the roster was last year and compared to some of the limbo things we have going on right now.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And it seems like at this point you're kind of replacing Kimi with, or replacing Badji with Kimi, right? And you're replacing Halsey with Gaddis.
Right.
And so you're kind of moving those slots up, right? So we'll see what happens with those guys and what happens with the depth of, the roster as a whole, as the next couple weeks happen. But to talk more about different transfers, you had mentioned a name in Kellen Acosta that still a free agent, which is pretty surprising because
wild.
arguably probably top 3, if not top 5 free agent, slots in behind Wagner and Robinson and those guys. But, as of recent, has been named as, possibly the most likely to land him, or at least interested in landing him. Not much word around him being connected with FC Cincinnati rather than the one meeting that they had, but wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Kellen would be, again, just such a huge upgrade at that position. We kind of, talked about it in the last podcast too, so I don't need to go too much into it, but just the value that he would bring, experience. He actually has like family from Japan, Sam. I don't know if you knew that. So him and Kubo having a cool relationship there would be kind of cool. I learned that actually watching some Apple TV on him, kind of like a player profile for the World Cup last year. But yeah, I think it would be fascinating if they were able to swing it. I think, like I said, their money attention now is on, either outside backs or keeping some of it for, another striker, because like you said, we're deeper in the midfield. If we can get Moreno on a decent contract, I think they ultimately lean that way. Kellen was making over $1 million. It's going to be hard to pay him that much. If that's what he still wants, at this point, you're kind of trading or selling the pitch of come to a winning team with all this experience and the potential that you're going to go to MLS Cup or go to Chicago where you're maybe a playoff team at best. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think to your point, the money factor is going to be huge, especially after the cash that we probably splashed on Miles Robinson. To bring in a guy like Kellen Acosta, is it in FC Cincinnati's books? It may be if we don't have to pay, guys like Barreal, guys like Moreno,
Well, and like you mentioned with Miles too, is that a player that has been pitching Kellen to come to Cincinnati too? Is it a
as a former
situation
U.S.
of,
men's national team. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they're familiar with each other. And, I think he's probably had a couple other connections with a few players on the roster too. But I think that would be exciting. It looks more bleak than anything at this point. But Sam, moving on to another player, I want to give you a shout out for your calling this guy for potentially being a striker that we're looking at, a young forward. Sam, give us your rundown again of this guy.
Yeah, I mean, FC Cincinnati should just hire me as a scout. Let's start with that. Or they're listening to the podcast. Either one is probably likely. But yeah, I thought it was pretty funny that I made that pitch for Lucifer Hernandez. And lo and behold, FC Cincinnati apparently is looking at him as an option to kind of replace Vasquez, or at least slot into a similar scenario that he came in with when he was with Atlanta, and came to FC Cincinnati. Or I guess it was Nashville. He came from Nashville.
Well,
Nashville
Atlanta, then Nashville, and
Nashville. Yeah, it was
kind
of hodgepodge there.
We get you.
But yeah, I think 22 years old could be a good piece for FC Cincinnati. Once again, he fills a hole, right? And he fills a hole as far as a solidified number 9. He plays as a striker. It's not like we had talked about in the podcast prior with Baird and Bupenza, guys that can play, the 9, they could play the 10, they could play on the wing, wherever they kind of need to play up top. Whereas Lucifer is a little bit more up front, and he's your solid number 9, a little bit taller of a guy too. So you're going to get a similar style like Vasquez, somebody that can win those balls in the air against center backs. So, yeah, I think a move needs to be made at some point. And I think the acquisition of a right back, left back would be great. That's number 1 priority. Number 2 priority would be getting our FC Cincinnati free agents re-signed. And then if we have time, I'd like another striker to at least balance out the depth a little bit. I'm a little weary on Santos being a possible starter for FC Cincinnati.
I mean, he scored a goal against Houston to start the year last year, so I can't knock the guy in that sense. He had some decent games. It's just he's so spotty, and for what we pay him is what I'm more concerned about. So if you bring young Lucifer in, is he going to want a big, transfer fee or, a large salary? What is he going to take up, and what is his productivity. He's young, he's unproven, he's from a smaller league technically. So I don't know if he's not your day one starter, but he could definitely, like you said, develop into that. It's just for a win now scenario of you're paying Miles, you're paying Corey. I think they want maybe a home run potential towards the latter half of the year to get us through a playoff push or something like that. Or that might set us up for, following years with Bupenza and another pairing potentially. It'll be interesting to see. But I wanted to just give you credit for that because that was impressive that you called that. And then 2 weeks later, then they announced, at least somebody announced, I don't know who it was. I think it was MLS Moves on Instagram, but they said, oh, FC Cincinnati's interested. You go and look at the player profile, Sam. He follows FC Cincinnati on his Instagram.
Yes, he does. It's all about Instagram. It's all about it. That's
all about the
actually
gram.
what we looked at. Yeah, it's all about the gram.
It was probably the reels. He probably watched the reels and then went and followed the team.
Well, we tagged him. We tagged him on the reel, so he was like, "Oh yeah, that yeah."
Really? Now I didn't realize that.
We did. So did we just connect him in FC? Did we just make the signing? Did we do that?
Interesting. I don't know about that one, but that's fascinating. Sam, I think that covers a lot of the news that I had, for this past week. I'm pumped, like I said, just for games to be starting up here soon to actually get some soccer going again. I was watching all the playoffs for football and it just made me miss soccer more. I really just miss the orange and blue. It's only been like a month or so, but, we have it for the majority of the year and then you have it a month or 6 weeks off and you're like, itching, I'm refreshing my feed and looking for news and looking for information and stuff. So I'm sure the social media team is like sick of everyone going through and making comments on it, but you can tell that this, city is excited. And that's the biggest thing that I just wanted to comment on is you look at how much traction us getting into the playoffs and winning a shield has brought attention to us, has brought more attention to fans. Like, let's just build into this season. And when you have uncertainty in some of the roster, it makes you nervous. Like, I want to keep these fans. I want to keep everyone interested in it. I don't think that'll be a problem necessarily, but it is funny.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be a problem, but it's definitely cool to see. I think it speaks more to growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot more people that are getting in touch with FC Cincinnati and kind of riding the wave, if you will, when they get into town. It's, when is FC Cincinnati playing? Who do they play? Rather than, the Reds or the Bengals, which is pretty cool. Obviously we want to uplift all the other Cincinnati teams, but it's nice to see FC kind of creating its own platform aside from, the others, because the others are down by the banks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get FC Cincinnati that's a little bit north, and they've kind of created their home up there, which is really cool. So yeah, really excited to get into it. Preseason starting, everything like let's get into it. Let's talk about things, rumors. I want everything. Give me content.
Yeah, well, and like the actual gameplay, I miss like the training videos and stuff like that, and just seeing, like I said, soccer being played. But speaking on like educating people, I tweeted out today, I don't know if you saw this, but I was perusing some of the games for this year and, some of the tickets available for the various home matches. Inter Miami is coming to play us on July 6th of this year, Sam. The tickets are around $250 per ticket to see possibly an Inter Miami team that likely will not have Lionel Messi, that likely will not have a few other key contributors, including Luis Suarez with his Uruguay team. So the Copa America tournament for these national teams is going on in the U.S. at the same time. July 6th will be the quarterfinals round. I think the 4th and 5th for where Argentina is at, but the 6th is also a game day. So potentially one, possibly even more big stars from their team that aren't even going to be there. And these ticket prices are $250. I just thought it was like ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it was interesting that, a lot of FC fans are probably giving other teams crap specifically Sporting KC,
Yeah,
right,
good
for what they're
shout.
doing
Good shout.
and moving their game to the Chiefs Stadium at Arrowhead because Messi and folks are coming to town. But now you dive and you look at FC Cincinnati's tickets and you're like, oh, $250. Oh, looks like we're not so much different. But I'm
I don't know
sure
if that's
it'll.
created from us or is that people in the surrounding areas that see, oh, well, FC Cincinnati plays Inter Miami and I live in Indy or I live in Louisville, and I want to go see them play. I don't know if that's the case or not because I feel like our fans are fairly educated on that, but
Yeah, I don't want to put the blame on the club or on our fans or anybody like that. I just think it's interesting, right?
yeah,
Obviously, it's something that's going to happen around the MLS, right? This guy comes to town, tickets go up, like
right.
it, it's going to happen, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if you're a club that's like, hey, we're trying to keep club costs down or we're trying to, help the fans out. It doesn't matter. It
Right.
doesn't matter. The kind of ambiance that surrounds this guy wherever he goes. I mean, it's going to bring more prices. So,
It's funny to
um,
me. I mean, he was named the FIFA Player of the Year for last year. And, I see this tweet out today by this journalist saying, Leagues Cup is recognized around the world as, this elite competition. And it's like, if you actually watched and paid attention to this, which I don't think this guy does at all, you would realize that everyone hates the Leagues Cup. They hate the way that it messes up the MLS scheduling. He's only saying that because, well, Messi, won Leagues Cup and look at all this attention it brought. It's like, well, if the dude was here all year, it probably would have been other competitions and you wouldn't have said that. And he won the award because of the World Cup, not because of Leagues Cup. So I don't know what he's getting at with this and referencing that. But yeah, I think it was fascinating. It was a good point. I wanted to bring that up too about Kansas City is like, you look at the Sporting KC fans and how upset they are at their club for moving this game to Arrowhead. I mean, to your point, if you go to this site, I mean, do you reap the benefits of, the tickets and stuff? Is it technically, yours to get, or is it more of a neutral site game at that point? I don't know. I don't know how that affects profits and stuff like that too, but more just from the standpoint of, KC's got their own stadium. For those people that want to look at this, I think Sporting Kansas City is hosting a Copa America game. I looked at this actually today. So how are you going to tell me a Copa America game is going to be held in this stadium, but Messi comes to town and then all of a sudden you're going to move it to Arrowhead? Like, really?
great soccer atmosphere there in Kansas City. They don't sell out. They're a bunch of great soccer fans. That's what it sounds like to me.
I mean, I got to give KC fans like respect. It's not really on the fans of them creating it. It seems like the club was the one that, drove this.
No, I'm
I
I'm
I
just
think,
saying the like the front offices don't have
oh,
respect
sure.
for the fans. That's
Yeah.
that's what yeah, that's what
Got
I'm
it.
saying. Is
Gotcha.
more
Yeah.
like
Yeah. They don't
I
have
feel
respect for
bad
that.
for the fans
Right.
because like you have no respect for
Right.
the people that won it at the soccer specific stadium. We were talking about
Yeah.
when we were possibly going to get, a World Cup game and people were like, "Oh, they should have it at Paul Brown." No, why would you do that? We have a soccer specific stadium right here. That's why we built it. And I'm sure, the other
Yeah.
people are screaming that from the rooftops as well.
Yeah. I mean, for that event, I think there's a capacity minimum for that potentially, but I hear what you're saying. I mean, you build this soccer specific stadium for these reasons, for these big games. And then to see them kind of offload it was fascinating. Especially as a season ticket holder, you want to be in your seat for that game. You want to see all of these big moments in that seat, and then you're going to kind of be disconnected from that by going to NFL Stadium. Um, it's got to be frustrating for them. So shout out to them. We support you guys. And they whooped up on St. Louis this past year. I think a lot of people were happy about that too. But Sam, we can wrap this one up here unless you have anything else you wanted to touch on.
No, I'll go ahead. I'll hit you with the trivia of the week again. For those who missed out on it in the previous part of the podcast, it was who was FC Cincinnati's most expensive signing in terms of transfer fee, and from which club did they acquire this player? Ryan went with Brenner as his answer. The answer as of the latest available data, because we still have a transfer window going on, was Jurgen Locadia is FC
Really?
Cincinnati's most expensive signing, acquired from Brighton for 10 million euros. And it was a loan transfer. So we took on his 10 million.
I think with that, I mean, a loan technically, you just take the player's salary, is my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So at least like based on his worth or his transfer fee, I think like 10 million would cap it or be the top. What was Brenner's then is my question. Do
I
you
think
know that
Brenner's
off
was,
the top of your head?
I do not.
I think
I
it
think
was
8 or 9.
around the same because we wanted to break even on his transfer fee. I think he might even be close, but it's
There could
interesting.
be a toss up for this trivia of the week. We don't know.
Yeah, that's fat. I mean, the loan aspect, I think, is what throws you for it for sure. Because when players get loaned, you take on the salary of the player, but I don't think you take on the full transfer fee for it. That's the advantage of the loan. So not to go against your person, but
No, I think it was based off of his transfer fee value. I think that's what
based on the
the
value.
numbers
Got
were
it.
saying there. Yes.
Okay. I want to look that up real quick just to see what Brenner was. So Sam and I were talking during the break, though. I mean, you can fill them in what we were chatting on while I look this up on. We were looking to basically see if Brenner had played for Udinese. He got transferred to the Italian team. He tore his quad back in like September. He had surgery on it. Sam, fill us in.
Yeah. So looks like Brenner may have been on the bench for one of the games, as reported by Laurel. I think the interesting thing is we were talking about there are no pictures or anything of him in or any video, so we're still not sure if it actually happened. But obviously we trust the journalistic integrity, and so it's exciting to see one of our players play at that club level. But I'd like to actually see it. So if we could see that, that'd be great.
That would be cool. I mean, I would love to support him and like get a Brenner jersey from Udinese. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know, me personally. So it is a club record multi-million-dollar transfer fee for Brenner, which was 13 million, Sam.
So Brenner is the answer for the trivia.
You can just cut that part in. That's okay. It's all good. I just wanted to make sure that was the the correct one, but hey, like you said, this is fluid. Who knows? We're going to be bringing this big striker Mbappe in for multi-million-dollar transfer fee. No, I don't know. I don't think we can afford him. What do you think?
I don't know. I think Carl Linder's got some stuff under his sleeves.
Support your local UDF, everyone.
That's how we get Mbappe. Eat more UDF, and he's coming to FC Cincinnati.
That's right. Well, everyone, thanks again for tuning in. We'll probably be giving you another episode here in another week or two, obviously just depending on the content that's out there. Again, the season has officially started. The team's been training, I think starting today, but I don't know technically with the weather if they ended up going outside or not. They probably were doing a lot indoors, probably a lot of initial, health related things as well. We wish, Nick Hagelin a speedy recovery. He's coming back from his hamstring surgery. I'm really hoping that Nick will be available, probably in March is what I'm thinking. But hopefully sooner than that. We'll see. But thanks again, Sam. We'll see you next time.